Hello, Internet, and thank you very much for joining us for the another Cloud Native Islamabad workshop. And this has been a long time. We haven't done any workshop in 2023 yet, but today is a very special one. Let's start the discussion of what topic we're covering today. So, before discussing the topic, here's my quick intro. My name is Saim Safdar. I currently live in Islamabad, Pakistan, and I'm the co-founder of Cloud Native Islamabad community. And today I'm your host for running this workshop. So today we're covering about what topic is actually we're talking about from code to cloud, quality Kubernetes deployment with Monokle. A brief introduction, this abstraction of what we're covering today. Kubernetes is hard, we all know, and achieving deployment success on the first try is not a small feat. All teams from developers to DevOps and beyond need to have a basic understanding of the ins and outs of the Kubernetes to complete the necessary task that each role required to achieve fast, secure, cloud native deployment successfully. In this workshop, as of today, we discuss how to make sense of Helm charts and customize overlay, including OPA validation in pipelines, incorporate GitOps action, and create each type of YAML manifest needed for deployment to help teams seamlessly collaborate. So we'll start the section around install a local Kubernetes cluster, install an application, configuring the application, see how the application behaves in production, Git action and version storage in Git, create an overlay to customize and compare the customized output with existing things deployed in the cluster and compare the pre-customized Git with post-customize. With all this, with open source tool we now known as Monokle. So today's topic today, let me introduce my guest today, Sergio Ocon Cardenas. He's a product lead at kubeshop, and he will discuss about his more in his intro now. Over to you, Sergio.
Thanks, Haim. Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting us to talk about Monokle. Let me share my screen, and I will be short because we have a real demo with a workshop that we want to present. But I think it's good if we can start talking about why we're here. One
Yes,
second.
absolutely. And let me introduce my second guest, Irdi Koze. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So, a brief intro of yours, and then we start the agenda.
Hello, I'm Erdi from Turkey, and I'm senior software engineer at KubeShop. Today, I'm going to demo about how I deploy, how I create my manifests, and how I validate them, etc. on this stuff. And thank you for all joining.
Yep. Thank you for joining. So let's start. I promise I will be short. So can you see my screen? No.
Yes,
Are you
thank you
seeing?
very much. So, I'm removing myself from the screen as well. So, now, Sergio, you can start. And then
Yeah, I'm
I
asking.
hope
Yeah,
everybody
you can see
can
my screen. That's perfect.
see the screen of
So
Sergio now. So, now its stage is yours. So, now, stage is yours, Sergio. So you can
thank you
start
very
talking about what
much.
we're covering today,
Uh,
and I will be continuously monitoring the chat. If anybody has question, please feel free to put those into the YouTube comment section, and I will add those in well. So over to you, Sergio. Now,
okay, thank you very much. So uh, just to set up what we are trying to discover today, when you're deploying application to Kubernetes, there's a lot of things you need to do. And most of them, they need a separate application or a CLI, something that helps you do it. So the first thing is I have my application. My code is not only my code. I also have the configuration and the running configuration for my application. I need to define a deployment, the pods, the templates, the load balancers, everything related to the configuration. So I'm going to go and generate it, normally with a code editor and some extensions. And then in some cases, that's not so straightforward because I need to use Helm or Kustomize. I'm deploying a third-party package with Helm, like the database, or because I'm using different environments, I want to use Kustomize to modify what is there. But that's one thing. That will generate files. In most cases, it will be proper YAML. There's another step on making sure that that's working as expected. So there's tools in the market that allows you to define policies and defines a way of making sure that your application is working. And if you go through all that validation, that can be one person, one YAML guru or Kubernetes guru, or can be some type of validation engine like Trivy, Open Policy Agent, or any of the other tools available in the market, you're going to commit that to a Git flow if you're using GitOps, or you're going to store the configuration in some place. So there's always like the old configuration and the new configuration, and you want to make sure that you're doing the right thing. And in many cases, and specifically if you're using Kustomize and you're using continuous deployment, that's not so obvious because you can change something in your configuration and there's several steps until you go there. And of course, to change your application, you're going to have to start this again. So you go to the generation, validation, you compare with other versions to approve or reject a pull request, to know what happened if you have an error and you need to go back. You use some kind of committing interface, and I'm sure you relate. In many cases, that's basically praying. You deploy a configuration, it fails, you look at the logs, they don't work, and you basically copy and paste from some place in the internal until you get it right. And then the last part of that is actually going to your cluster and see how your application is behaving. Is everything working as expected? What happened if I modify the version of my Kubernetes and I need to redeploy, update all the configuration files? All the things, again, need different environment, different tools, and you need to work with all together. So what we have created is a tool, Monokle, that addresses this challenging and proposes a full flow that covers all the topics I'm talking here. I'm going to stop here, and I will allow Erdi to do the actual workshop. I just want to tell you this is open source. Well, Monokle is more than the desktop you're seeing today. We also have a cloud version. We have a CLI. So there's a lot of option for you. But today, Erdi is going to show you how to go through this cycle completely. And I will stop sharing while I'm saying this. I'm sorry. Now.
Yes, thank you very much, Sergio. So now, Erdi, can you share your screen and give us a tour of what Monokle does for
Of course.
the open source?
Okay.
So yes, I can see your screen now, so you can continue the conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Saim. And actually, before I start my demo, I would like to thank all the Paki friends for their help and support to Turkish earthquake disaster. I mean, it really means a lot to me. So after this, I can say that I'm a developer. I mean, I really enjoy developing applications, and I do it even in my free times, just for fun, etc. And I am a developer more than an ops person. So somehow I need to deploy my applications to cluster in a good way, with some best practices, etc. But I don't have to be a Kubernetes expert. I mean, I believe that many more and more developers are starting using Kubernetes because they need it. They need to deploy their applications. So I will show my experiences today, like how I create my manifest files as a developer, how I validate them, how I deploy them, how I see in deployed applications in my cluster, or even for Helm charts or Kustomize, how I generate these files with debugging features. And if there is a problem in my cluster, for example, I need to see that somehow. So I will go through these steps today. And this is how Monokle starting page looks like. And this is my main cluster project. It contains my projects for my main cluster. I have more than one cluster just for high availability purposes. And today I would like to show that, I mean, in this screen, you see at top right, there is a version. I mean, there is a version because this is Kubernetes schema version. So I actually created my resources according to this version, because if you change it, I mean, as you know, Kubernetes releases a new version in sometimes, I mean, over the time. So it sometimes deprecates some definitions. It sometimes adds some definitions, etc. So it's basically your resource can outdate it easily. So why I choose this version? Because I mean, if I show it here, I mean, I'm connected to my cluster, and if you see that my cluster version, it's actually 1.24.3. So that's why I actually choose that version, and I created my definitions with this version. So there are other stuffs like, as you see, default is actually my cluster name, and we will connect it later. I will just go through my resources. So today I'm going to show, these are all of my applications, but I will show today one of my applications here with a name which is Gatekeeper. It doesn't matter what it does, but I need to deploy it to the cluster. And to do that, I need to create some resource definitions, YAML definition files, like deployments. For example, this is a deployment. There is a metadata like name, namespace, etc. And Monokle warns me about some validation errors. We will go to that, come to that, and the other things like image pull scripts, because I pull this image from a private repository. I created some secrets, etc. This is not important. But if I come to error here, it says container security context allow privilege escalation to false. It says me there is an error, and you need to set some things to fix this error. It actually assists me. So for example, these errors are come from OPA validation, and OPA stands for Open Policy Agent, and which allows you to define, manage, and enforce policies across your entire stack from the application layer to the infrastructure layer. And it actually uh, integrates easily with automation tools, etc. I mean, this is one way to show these validation errors. And if I would like to change these validation errors in this section, we have a settings here, and you can just configure these errors. Let me see these. What are these errors? And I'm coming here. It says KS 001, KSV 001, KSV 003, 12, 14, 20. And I can just close all of these error here, just as you see, 1, 2, 3 here, or just I can disable them all. I will not pick them one by one, but it does the same thing. And then I come to here, you see all the errors are gone. It doesn't show any errors anymore, but you could fix them by just typing the things it tells you to type. For example, you could add security context features, etc. But I just need to say that if your application, if your pods running on like say persistent volume, and if it needs to reach some file paths, I mean, it's not a good way to do that. So you can cancel it, or you can keep as it is. So I'm opening it
So
again.
just
Yeah.
for me to understand, so we have OPA, there's a set of rules. There's like best practices and rules to make sure you're following them. And then we have those rules in Monokle, and you enable and disable them in the configuration so you can see the results in real time. And if you
Yes,
update the configuration, you will see the changes in real time, so you know you're doing that.
yes, exactly as
Okay.
you said, Sergio. Uh, in every definition file, I mean, it's just checks it, and if it see errors or warnings according to rules that enabled, it shows in real time. I can manipulate it, I can edit it, and I can fix these issues by doing that, or I can just close them if I don't need them. So this
Okay.
is the way doing it.
So I can adjust my deployment to the maturity level. So at the beginning, I
Yes.
will be more lenient, and I won't care so much. And then when I have more experience, I will put more rules in place, so I
Yeah.
know that I'm following every rule.
Yeah,
Okay.
according to your needs. It's actually assist you with OPA. I mean, it's integrates OPA, so it assists you.
Okay. And then,
So
just if somebody doesn't know that OPA is using other tools, so you can actually have enforcement of these policies in your cluster. So your workloads can be approved or rejected based on these policies. So you can actually know before you deploy if your workload is going to be accepted or not by the policy engine. That's do this kind of checks in real time all the time in the cluster. This allows you to know what is going to be the result of your deployment.
yeah,
Yes, and small question on the validation side from my side as well. Like Open Policy Agent has been a very famous in the market for the checking the validation because Kube API server has this kind of notion. You get to give a request, they have webhook authentication, you call the API server. So there's already checks in place in the pipeline. So some people are using the Kyverno policy engine as well. So in future or going down the road, if you see some people have some kind of want to see Kyverno in here, so is there a kind of a roadmap or people can create a roadmap out of it?
Yeah, of course they can open an issue, they can go back, but yes, that's one of the things we are looking. We know this OPA, there's other tools. We actually added in the cloud version of TypeScript validator because there are some things that OPA or 3B doesn't support. But yes, one of the things we want to do is to improve the validation engine and see what makes sense. If we have enough people asking for 3B, will be the next. If we have more requests for other validation engines, we are open to introduce other validation engines as well. So that you can go if you want.
okay. I
Yes.
mean, this is the overlooking to the validations. And if I, for example, this is my service, and when I click the left side is actually my file. So in my service YAML file, there could be more than one resource definition, and the middle section shows the resources individually. I mean, if there are three of them in here, I will see three separated resources in that section. So it actually highlights me that this resource is related with this file, and I'm clicking it. And for example, if I go to resource, and for example, its type is cluster IP because I'm deploying my application with Ingress, so Ingress does the load balancing thing. But if, for example, if I would like to do this with type load balancer, I don't need to type load balancer here. I can select that here, and as you see, now it changed the load balancer. I mean, you don't have to write YAML actually. You can just uh, use the form here. I mean, it's also useful for me because not everybody has to know YAML or indentation, etc. Just use the form and it will do the same thing for you. So there are other resources actually here, but I will not go deep dive to them. And I will show the other things like Helm and Kustomize. For this application, I also created an Helm templates, and Helm, basically a package manager for Kubernetes, which can you deploy applications and prepackaged applications, or you can package your applications. So I just packaged my application Helm, but while doing that, I used some compare debugging features of Monokle. Like, for example, now my templates are here. You can see templates. I mean, this is a Helm definition. There are some definitions here, like, I mean, it reads values, pod annotations, etc. And if I preview that, it just generates whatever this Helm chart does. For example, it created the deployment, and I can see what is created, and I can see a secrets, I can see a social environments, etc. I mean, these are my secrets, ingress, and service definition files that I created for this template, and it created very well. So as you see, there are also some incoming and outgoing links, and this is related with this deployment resource. For example, as you see here, I mean, there are some resources that Gatekeeper uses actually. For example, it uses some values from this secret file. It's actually database URL, and if you see that, if you check that, it's actually related with that file. For example, in incoming or outgoing resources, you see that Gatekeeper API, MongoDB environments are here. And if I click that, it just shows that it says this file is related with this resource also. You can navigate between your resources. You can see how they interact with themselves. You can see easily with that way. So let's say we created our Helm chart and we are just don't know if we produced the right thing or we are just developing it. There is another feature we called compare, and you can see it here. And you can basically compare any kind resource here. For example, your local resources, your cluster resources, your Helm, Kustomize, Git, and these features. For example, I created my Helm. I'm selecting my Helm, I'm selecting which Helm chart, and you can specify some values for this Helm, and I will select default values file, but you can also run it with other options. And when I click that, you see in the left side, you see your Helm preview. But I would like to check my application. I mean, because I created my resources before, so I would like to see in my local folder if Gatekeeper file are matched. For example, if there is a problem or not. For example, there is an issue, let's encrypt issue. I didn't add that in my Helm. It shows that because it is not appearing. I can add that as a template. And for the others, you see there is a diff button which diffs between two resources. For example, if I click, you see there are secret resources that is differentiating. Like, for example, here there are labels which Helm preview created for me, and there is not, and the others are your database password, URL, etc. This kind of stuff. And while creating my Helm chart, I actually get help from this a lot, because I mean, if I do a mistake, I can easily find it and I can add to my Helm template. So when I generate my Helm again, it helps me so I can create a better chart in that way. And it is also useful for example, if you compare your cluster, you have two clusters. One is backup of the others and one is failing, but the other cluster is running. So you can just compare two clusters to see what is wrong between them. I mean, so also you can understand the issue very fast and you can just fix them. I mean, this is
So
the
you
way.
can
Yeah.
compare any version that you have stored, and one of the thing I'm trying to go a little more. So you have the Helm. The Helm basically is a Helm metadata, a set of templates, and a value file that sets the values using the templates. And
Yeah.
what we are comparing here is the result of the Helm chart with the values file,
Yeah.
and you are
Without
comparing that
deploying
with a
the
local
cluster.
version of that. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, without deploying the cluster. I mean, it is just previewing my Helm chart, and I didn't deploy it yet, but I can preview it. And with my local version that I generated my resources in separately, in my local file, so I can just check them, compare them if they are right or not, or for any purpose. I mean, yeah, as you said. So, I mean, for this kind of stuff, that's okay, I believe. And for Kustomize, for example, I also created a Kustomize for my application. And for Kustomize, let's say I have application for, I mean, this application can run on staging or production environments. And to deploy these separately, you don't need to actually create all of them. For example, here there is my base template, which are my definition files, and I created environments like production and staging, and it just basically this. For example, it just changes my ingress endpoint because I want to deploy my application to staging here, and for production here. It's actually vice versa. I just I'm not fixing it. It's a small bug. Yeah, in that way. I just changed the environments. So without deploying the cluster, also this Kustomize, I just want to see its result. If it creates my customized val for staging and um for production environment, I just need to come to Kustomize section and do preview here. And if I preview here, as you see, application now entered the customization preview mode, and as you see top bar here, it's bluish, and I can see my resources again. It's created, and the main difference here is my host endpoint. As you see, it's created gatekeeper prefab tag. I mean, it's created that. But if I could preview the staging environment, if I come to ingress, and I could see staging environment here. I mean, I didn't deploy my customization to my cluster yet, but I can see the output of it. I believe it's a very powerful attribute of this application. So you can see things, and even that you can compare your customization. For example, one customization to other one, so you can just you see these all resources are same. There is no diff button appears, but for the ingress there is a diff button, and the only difference is this URL. So you are successfully customized your application for staging and production environments.
And just to clarify a little this, I know you know, but normally Kustomize is different from Helm. Helm package the application into a format with metadata and the values files and the templates. Kustomize does not use templates. What it does, it uses basic manifest and it modifies them. So it's using JSON path and it's using Go templating to modify the YAML into another thing. So your uses the same thing. So it's very useful to do things like this, changing the host, making sure it's the proper one, adding labels, or just modifying things for production without needing to have different versions of your application stored in different ways. So having this can basically help you to compare what is the output once you go through that customization process. What is the output and the difference between your development, staging, and production environment without having to manually generate these files and then guessing what has been the changes, or using a file that will basically only tell you the difference in the files, but it won't tell you what is going to happen after all this templating and modification process that we've seen here.
Yeah, Sergio, exactly. And even though you can you can compare. Previously, we created Helm preview and customization preview. So it's up to you. You can compare everything, and you can debug your application with that way. So if you come to application again, I mean, you see your resources. I believe it's time to connect to cluster and see my application in my cluster. To connect my cluster, I need to click this connect button here, and it now connected to my cluster with the namespace gatekeeper, because my application is deployed to gatekeeper namespace, under the gatekeeper namespace. So you can see your resources here. These resources are in your cluster right now. As you see, there is status tag section, and this status section is available only if your cluster in deployed to, if your resource deployed to cluster. And yeah, for example, if I delete these resources by one, and deploy my application again, you will see that they will exist in your cluster again. Or let's close cluster mode here, and there is another section which you can see your cluster dashboard easier. It is that screen. And for example, if you click that, I mean, again, you will see your gatekeeper namespace, and you can change it, and you can basically see what's wrong with your cluster. For example, there is a deployment, and there are 6 warnings, and for the overview, you see these total 18 warnings, and 6 for each for deployment, pod, replica set. And you can see your CPU, memory, storage, etc., and some informations about your cluster. And for let's say pod, you deployed your application, and you can see your info here, summarized info like incoming links, outgoing links, labels, annotations, namespace, and in which node it's running. For example, it's worker 2. And when it's created, you can see these things in the manifest definition. Also, you can see its logs, for example, what's happening in your application, and you can see its shell. It says not every pod supports, by the way. I mean, connecting to shell. It depends on your base container image, so that's why it showed here. But if I switch to another application, yeah, there's a bug happened. Yeah. Again, I'm selecting my application here. Yeah, I mean, you can debug your applications also. By the way, Sergio, you are talking, but you are mute.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was mute. And I was saying that we are using the development branch
Yeah,
for this,
we are in
and that
development.
can with risk. We decided to do so for this demo because we are quickly working on some fixes and we want to include it there. But we will be releasing later the version that includes all the bug fixes, and we want to make sure you were seeing the right thing because we are releasing this week. And but what I was saying is, it's you were showing the errors, and that was the same kind of errors we were seeing before with the OPA, the links, the YAML validation, the Kubernetes schema validation, but in the manifest in your cluster. So I wanted to point out that that's what you see. It's basically, yes, you forgot to add a label. You have a rule, an OPA rule that's make sure that you have your label in place. Monokle is gonna tell you you forgot to have your 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 label in place, and that's an OPA violation. So you need to fix it, and you can actually go to the configuration and edit it in real time to fix the error.
Yeah, I mean, for the validation thing, it is like you said, and we, after that, I mean, for example, for the rules, we did some changes here. For example, I changed my endpoint here for both customization, and I played with service YAML, so it just generated a space. It's not a big deal, and without needing to using CLI, I can stage my changes, and I can my changes like say um, change customization URLs and commit it and push to my Git repository.
So you're saying that Monokle support JIT, so everything we're
Yes.
talking can be done in JIT. You don't need to go to your command line inside the
Yes.
tool. You can see your JIT, you can see your commits, and you can actually stage and commit and push that into your JIT repo. So if you're
Yes.
using GitOps or you're just using Git without GitOps, you can have that. And I think that's really powerful because one of the things is what happens if something breaks. You want to have some recording on what it was the last configuration that it was working. So if you are using Git or you're sharing Git with others, that it's the main reason to do so, you can actually compare and see the changes in resources from one version, one commit, one branch to another Git commit or branch, and you can see what happened. So it's easy for you to find what has been the changes that broke your cluster.
Yes. Exactly. So, yeah,
Got it.
this is the way we actually see our cluster. But the last thing I want to show actually, the application is deployed to your cluster. And for example, let's say you want to deploy your staging environments to your cluster. So I go to customization section and I just select my customization file, and there is a deploy button for customization, and it also exists for your Helm charts, or individually you can deploy any of your resource definition. And when I select the deploy, it say, do you want to deploy customization YAML customization to default? And it's a namespace actually. If I say okay, it's now deployed. It's deployed to my cluster. So I can compare the resources with my cluster again. Let's select cluster. Let's select default is my default cluster, which I use for these application purposes. And I can select the customized preview that I used for deploy this application. So yeah, if when I click that, I will now see the differences. It now fetches all resources from my cluster. That's why it taking a lot, because I mean there are a lot of applications in my cluster. And when it shows the results, I will just select only matching ones, because there are many resources you will see. I will just want to I just want to see the only matching resources. And yeah, as you see, there are many resources, but I don't need all of them, so I see only matching. So this is my cluster resources, and this is my customization preview resources. And if I want to click div, I can see the differences. And if there is an error, issue, etc., I just can do fixing by here. But as you see, these resources are created in cluster. So these, for example, there is creation, stop, generation, etc. These are related with cluster. I mean, they don't have to be in your resource definition file. So everything seems fine. It deployed the right endpoint. Everything's okay. So there's no problem with it. And yeah, these are things I can show about Monokle.
You have the images tab in the navigator too there.
Yeah,
Can you
yeah. I
explain what it
mean,
is? The images down, down customize Helm, you have the images.
yeah. This is actually the images that I use in my applications. For example, these are the Gatekeeper API, which is my image that I showed in my deployments. These are all the images used in my resources. So if I click one of them, you will see um, if of course there is a meaningful informations, you will see the definitions of them. And it's just for example, it's used in another API. If I click that, it goes to that deployment, and you see that it uses that image. And if, for example, if I, for example, who am I image, if I come here and if I click that, you see it's another application which uses this image. Actually, it's summarizing all of your images used in your cluster, and you are able to see that where it used in another resource. So you just see them.
So we are validating the images, and I see that you can replace the images directly here, validating YAML, the Kubernetes schema, and also do an OPA validation. Is that
Yes,
right? Okay.
yes, yes. I mean, I basically tried to show, I mean, pre-created with pre-created definition files like my application. I mean, everybody needs to create deployment, ingress, service, etc. This kind of stuff to deploy your application. I mean, you don't have to deploy all of them. You can, of course, just do it a simpler way. But I tried to show how you can use Kustomize and Helm, and how you can compare them in your application to create better templates for these purposes. And I tried to show basic uh, validation rules for your resources. For example, we see an error or warning, we try to fix them. And even though we don't want to fix them, we can just disable it. So later, whenever we need it, we can again open that definition, open that validation rule, and we actually deployed application easily just by clicking. For Kustomize and for Helm, it's also the same. I mean, for example, here is also deploy button. I mean, you can deploy your Helm chart also, and even you can just deploy one resource like here, deploy. It is easy as this. And we compared our resources in cluster with the Kustomize. We compared Helm to Kustomize, local file to cluster, etc. We compared all of these things to see what is going on, if the resources are matching, and we saw how to commit our changes, and we saw our images, the last section images. And there's actually, I mean, basic settings I can show. For example, um, there is, of course, to connect your cluster, you need to define some things. And for example, for Kustomize, kubectl supports also Kustomize, and Kustomize also exists in a separated command. You can select them. I mean, you can do this kind of settings in your application too.
The one thing you talk about templates. So is there anything about templating
Templating for Helm
for
or Kustomize?
resources? Yeah, for general resources. Can you share?
Of course. I mean, yeah. I mean, for example, when you create your templates like Kubernetes resource, I mean, you can create any resource from a model because you can just select things, or we have actually templates. And for example, if you come here and, for example, you select basic service deployments, you will see there is some inputs to fill in, like name, namespace, image, and actually you can select these images, and also namespaces exist in your cluster. So if you complete them, it will generate your your resources according to these templates. And also you can add your templates also. I mean, there is also an option. For example, you are usually using some basic templating stuff, and you just want to create them as a plugin, and you push it to GitHub repo or any repo, so you can pull them. and you will able to see them here, and you will just need to um, fill the resources that you defined actually, and it will generate. Or you just need a basic resource. For example, you can select resource kind here, let's say secrets, and you can create secret name very uh, my secrets, let's say my secrets, and you can select API version and namespace. And if you would like to save to existing resource as an template, sorry, I mistakenly clicked outside secrets, let's say, and namespace there is no, and API version, let's say version 1, resource secrets. Yeah, I would like to save to that, to where let's say who am I service, and when I click that, it generates a secret.
That you
Where is it?
generated it in the file. You set to generate it inside a file already existing.
Yeah, but I just missed that. Let's filter it. It's also easy way. I would like to see my secrets. Uh, Main cluster.
Well,
No, I just
I don't know if you recorded
clear
it.
that. Yeah, I couldn't find it, but let's create from templates. Basic pod, namespace, Argo CD, let's say, image is engines. And if I submit, if I done, it's created your pod here. You can see it here. It's created from your template. It just generated your resource.
So you can use it. Okay.
Yeah.
What happen if I have Argo or any other thing installed in my cluster and I have CRDs? Can you explain how
Um,
Monokle copes with CRDs?
yeah, Monokle works with CRDs actually. And for example, let me find it. Yeah, there are CRD schema, and for example, these you can register your CRD schemas in Monokle. And for example, these are the schemas I installed my cluster, and Monokle recognize these CRDs and adds to Monokle by default. But I can add other things. For example, there are Argoproj and Bit Bitnami and Key3s, for example, MetalLib. These are the CRDs that added to my cluster and um, added to cluster, and Monokle recognize them. And for example, I created, let's say, new custom resource definition. I can add them, so Monokle will recognize them and show um, resources according to them. For example, these are um, the CRDs that installed, for example, MetalLib. For example, this is my custom resource, actually MetalLib resource, and I actually created here a load balancer pool. And because of I added CRD in my cluster, and Monokle just recognize it, and or I can just install it to the Monokle, and my resources will be known by Monokle application. This is the way the way you can use CRDs.
Okay, that's great. I
Yeah,
saw validation pane what you were doing with all the list of validation. So um, just if you want to
yeah.
show how easy it is to fix, not that the validation pane with all the
Well,
list of validations.
uh, I just need to go back. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah. These are Kubernetes schemas. For example, I showed here. I'm using 124.3, and if I open that, Kubernetes schema will show, and
Yeah, but
OPA
I was referring to the validation. Uh, just you go to the navigation pane on the left, the one
navigation.
in the middle.
Navigation.
Just go down, 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 up. Just in there. Sorry.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
just go to the pane, to the header in the left, and go to the middle one.
I really didn't understand. Which one do you want, actually?
Just go left,
Uh
left,
huh.
and
Yeah.
there one down. That's compare resources. That's go down. Yeah, that one.
That one. Okay. Ah, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and then you have all the list of errors
Yes.
and
Yes.
warnings. So if you are interested in having a completely clean environment
Yes.
instead of having to go resource by resource, you can actually go here, filter, find the ones that are really critical, and fix them in
Yeah.
the editor with all the information about what they mean and why it's you need to fix them. So many times it's we are overdoing because you have something deployed and you are referring to a policy or an image that is already in the cluster, so you don't need to worry about that. But it's in many cases this is a very good way of doing TDD or similar to TDD and making sure that you are not forgetting to put a label or you are not forgetting to select a namespace or any of the things that can make your cluster break.
Yeah. Exactly. It's good that you remind me because I thought this is actually we introduced in version 2, so it wasn't exist before. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's the main demo.
Yes, that's looks super cool, Sergio, and I really enjoyed the conversation. I think all the wishes that I have is already baked into the Monkel as well. But one thing I try to, or if you go to the Helm preview, uh, I think all the people, there's another community Helm dashboard is being from the Commodore. I think they release in a few months. So might be people thinking like in the Monkle, what is actually the main focus as compared to the Helm dashboard?
So there's a couple of things. So the first thing it's this is the first version. Which you can do the preview of Helm just to know what is happening. In the short time frame, we're gonna be working on Helm, so you will be able to create Helm charts. So we are working with the Helm community, asking them what we do. Actually, we are contributing some code to Argo to make Argo better, and we are also working with Helm to see what is needed. So Helm becomes something that you can actually use in your own deployment, because right now Helm is quite hard to use, and there's places like this where you can see the helms you have deployed, you can see the charts, you can see the versions, and you can basically see the information that the cluster knows about Helm, but it doesn't help you to go and create your own Helm charts. And when you look at that, many of those charts do not use hooks because hooks are hard to understand. So what we are doing is saying, okay, let's get that thing we know is needed. So dependencies between Helm charts, hooks, and all those pieces, and make Monokle being the tool where you know what's going on, and then you can create your own Helm charts and enable Helm as a tool to deploy your own application, not only third-party application. That I think that's what everybody do and we all do. That is okay. I need a database. I look for the Helm chart, install it, and then if I need to update it, I need to see what is going on. I have tools helping me there. But if I want to put my application into a Helm chart, I don't know where to start, and that's where we want to do. And actually, if you need that, you think it's a good idea, please give us feedback because that's one of the things we are trying to define as actually. And there's a lot of things to take care, and we want to do the right thing. It's open source, so come and contribute. We would love to have your contributions.
Yes, another thing I'm thinking about on the Argus CD point of view is well, let's say if your some definition is already in place, some YAML, and that's YAML is actually misconfigured, have some issues in it, but that's actually in the GitHub repository, not in the local. So, is there a way like I can identify those YAML file and they can actually edit on the fly, and the configuration is done on the fly as well.
But if yes, we support Git. So you connect to Git, you can have a local copy. We will see the last definition, all the commits. You can compare different commits. You can compare different branches. Because we are integrated with Git, you can change it and then commit it to Git. Or if you are in a hurry because something is really, really, really broke, you can basically modify it, see the validation in real time, and push that directory to your cluster. And again, that's not an easy thing to say because if you're using GitOps, basically Argo or Flux will come and modify back where you haven't. So you will have to stop the pipeline before you do that. So that's not a way, but you can actually stop the pipeline, use Monokle, make the change, put that to production, and with the compare and sync feature we show, make a local commit, commit it to Git, put that into your Git repository so you can enable back your pipeline and make sure everything is working as expected.
Yes, that's super handy, super useful. Another question, like you see, we are using the base images a lot in the container images. So let's say we all see like base images tend to be changed and they have some kind of a review. So let's say if we are pulling the images or using the images inside the Kubernetes manifest, and we see the OPA validation is already in place in the Monkel. That's a great thing, and I'm assuming in future we have more like Kyverno and other tools might be added in as well. But right now this is OPA. So let's say we have the image that is actually being we are using is actually have vulnerabilities inside. So in Monkel, can you refer to the way like how do you make sure somebody using the base images that have the correct version, no more CVEs or these, or this might be a not much, might be the use case that become in the future becomes very handy for the local user.
So not right now, because we are configuration management. So we care about OPA. It's all about your deployment, not the image you're doing. There's other tools doing that. We haven't got yet to the point where people are asking us, I want to have that configuration. It's a complete different thing than what you see because that's more about how you package your code. And this is more about how you deploy your code. So we are more into the continuous deployment piece of the puzzle and not so much in the continuous integration part of the puzzle. But it's a good idea. I will be writing it down and making sure I ask more people around what they think. I know there's other tools that are now supporting those use cases. So we can use together both tools. But again, it's not the scope right now. We are open to see this changes really fast. I've been here 7 months and I've seen a lot of improvements in many pieces of the work. And as you can see, 2.0 has a very nice interface now. But as I'm telling you, that's CVE of your code specifically, something we leave for VS Code or any place closer to your code, because one of the things we discover, it's most of the people use VS Code. So if we want to be there, we're going to be competing with VS Code and all the extension to VS Code, and that doesn't make any sense. I don't think anybody's going to benefit from us trying to outdo VS Code. So let's keep it simple. Do something really good that is a very complex workflow, that is how to deploy your application, while the code editors can keep doing what they do so amazingly good.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. But I think all of the features right now we have, I really like it. You have a deploy button in the right corner, and you just click on it. It can install on the cluster as well. You have validations checks already in place. You can compare the different versions. You have the customize, you have the Helm charts, more in the plans as well. So right now, I think most of the things that the developer community needs, because Kubernetes is all around play with the YAMLs thing. And it's very difficult to compare YAMLs. And you have just one click of the button, and that's detected like what line change, where is actually the difference exist, so you can actually pinpoint the solution is that. So I think most of the capabilities right now bake into it, and the user interface is look very very beautiful. You can change the version on top of it, you can change the Kubernetes clusters on top of it, you can collect to the clusters. So I think it's look like a full-fledged development workflow that the development community needs right now, because developer is really kind of frustrating. Like they use a different tool and then they go to the CLI and then type deploy the cluster, and then they have to have then they manually check the validations. These are already exist into it. So I think moving forward, I can see more and more extension popping up into the Monokle as well. So it's been a great. I think it's a great introductory overview for the people. So we'll be more in touch with, because it has so many different use cases that can't be covered in just a 1 hour. So we definitely may be in touch and do other things as well. So before I let you go, the final thoughts, what the missing piece actually is, what is the missing piece, and what are the missing opportunities for the Mongol to be to be participate in the future, and what next plan, because KubeCon is coming up. So where people find you if they're going to the KubeCon as well.
So we're going to go to KubeCon Europe. We're going to have a booth. So we will be in the booth and presenting. Um, Again, this Monokle, there's going to be a lot of improvements in Monokle desktop in the next months before we go to KubeCon, and some of them are quite exciting. I hope we are ready with the Helm and Kustomize editor and templating features, so you can see more of that. Also, we launched this week the Monokle Cloud, that it's a version that you can do all the validation that you see here, but you don't need to download anything. So even if you're using a tablet, you can go look at Git, do all the validation, see what's going on, integrating with your GitHub flow, create a pull request, create a commit, so you actually don't need to go to your laptop if you need to do a quick fix. And also, if you don't want to use a CLI, because we know a lot of seasoned platform engineers do not like IDEs, we have created a CLI where you have all the validation we've been talking together. So you can use your flow, you can use Beam if you like it, and then you go to the command line. And of course, we don't have the command line other version because you already have the command line. But if you're going to do the validation, you just go and say, give me the resources this Kustomize is going to create, validate them against the OPA policies, and it will keep you a result. That validation pane will appear in your command line so you can fix them. So we're trying to make this a full suite of tools that covers all the use cases. And we will be showing that and talking to you and giving away nice plushes like that in our KubeCon Europe booth.
Yes, absolutely. That sounds very interesting. Well, let's give a quick round of what we have covered today. First, you have to follow our Irdikoze on Twitter. His Twitter handle is actually mentioned. Here's a Sergio Twitter handle as well. You can look at it, what the people talking about, because they recently post something that when things are changing there. Here is a Monkle website. You can read all the details. Here's the Monkle desktop that you learn today, and give a hands-on intro as well. We have a Discord channel that is available on the Monkle. If you go to click on this Discord channel, this basically you jump into the kubeshop Discord channel, where all the open source projects and members of the community there to help you solve problem. Here's a blog post series, some wonderful blog posts written, so make sure you have checked those as well. This is Twitter handle for the Monkle. You see all the updates regarding the projects. Make sure you have subscribed to it, follow the channel. This is the Cube shop that has so many tools. We just covered one of them today. Might be we cover another one in the future as well. And here's a Twitter handle for the Cube shop. Here's a blog post, and go to the GitHub repository of Cube shop and you see all the project listed there. And if you have any question regarding the Mongol, what the newest feature that you want to see in there, please have a see the roadmap or raise an issue. I hope all the community is looking into it and make those available as well. So a special thanks to Sergio and Irdi for give a wonderful introduction of the Monkle. If you have watched, you see how easy it is for the developer to use Monkle. And you don't need a CLI. You just click a button, all the things deploy into the cluster, and that Monkel has OPA validation check in place. You can view the Helm charts, you can view the customize, and there is so much more. You can see the CRD, so it's a wonderful package solution for all the development community looking forward to. So hope to meet you again. Thank you very much, Sergio. It's a pleasure talking to you. Learned a lot during the conversation. And stay safe, stay healthy, everyone. Bye bye. We have to meet you again the next workshop.